It's been a while now, but I remember that night. I remember it was the end of something. I just didn't know it was also the beginning. My husband Peter left me alone on New Year's Eve, and when he came back, he saw something he never, ever expected to see. I'm Laura. I'm 42, or I was back then. For years, I was the person who held things together, our marriage mostly. It felt like I was the only one holding it. I work as an office administrator. I'm organized, I'm steady. I'm the person people rely on to make sure things don't fall apart. I guess I was like that at home too. Peter is different. He's 45. With his friends or at his job, he's the guy everyone loves. Charismatic, funny, the center of every story. At home, he was just absent. Not physically, not always. But his mind was somewhere else. His heart was somewhere else. Anytime something difficult came up, he would just shut down. He'd get this look on his face, a blank wall, and if I pushed, he'd just leave. He'd need space. He was always needing space. It was my job to fix the silence he left behind, to smooth things over, to pretend everything was fine when he came back. For years, that's what I did. My sister Natalie, she's the only one who really knew. She's a couple of years younger than me. She saw it. She never pushed me too hard, but she would ask questions. She'd just look at me, and I knew she could see how tired I was. I'd tell her things, not everything, but enough. Enough for her to know that I was lonely in my own house. She was the one person I didn't have to pretend for. The last few months before that New Year's Eve were the worst they had ever been. The distance it was a physical thing in the room with us. He stopped touching me, just casual things, like a hand on my back in the kitchen. It all just stopped. He acted like I was a chore, an obligation, like my presence was an annoyance he had to tolerate. His phone was the biggest thing. It was always with him, always. And it was always turned face down on the table. If it buzzed, he'd snatch it up so fast, angling the screen away from me. I never asked to see it. I never would. But I knew. You just know. You know when you're being hidden from something. I felt invisible, but I kept trying. I thought, this is marriage. You try. You don't give up. I thought my job was to wait for him to come back to me. I really believed that. So, New Year's Eve. I'd been thinking about it for weeks. I thought, this could be it. This could be the night we fix things. No big party, no pressure, no friends, just us. I planned a quiet night at home. I got some nice food, the kind he likes, a bottle of something we both enjoyed. I just wanted it to be simple, warm, a chance to talk, a real conversation for the first time in months. I wanted to feel like his wife again, not his roommate. He got home from work. He seemed agitated, restless. I told him my plan for the evening, just us, quiet. He nodded, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his phone. I tried to ignore it. I started getting things ready in the kitchen. I was trying so hard to create a feeling of peace, of warmth. I wanted him to feel it. I wanted him to relax and stay. Around 8 o'clock, he came into the kitchen. He had his coat on. He told me he was just stepping out. He said some friends from work were meeting up for a quick drink, and he'd promised he'd stop by. He said he wouldn't be long, an hour, maybe 2. He promised he would be back well before midnight. He said it so casually, like it was nothing. Like leaving me alone on New Year's Eve was the most normal thing in the world. A part of me wanted to scream, to beg him not to go, to ask him why I wasn't enough. But I didn't. I just nodded. I've spent so many years nodding. I just said, okay, don't be too late. He was already out the door before I finished the sentence, and then the house was silent, completely silent. Just the sound of the refrigerator humming. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time. The nice food was all laid out. 2 plates, 2 glasses, a celebration for 2 people, and there was just me. At first I told myself it was fine. He'd be back, he promised. An hour. He'll be back in an hour. So I waited. I sat on the sofa. I turned on the television, but I didn't watch it. The sound was just noise to fill the emptiness. An hour went by, 9 o'clock. No text, no call. Okay, I thought. Things run late. He's having a good time. He deserves that. I was still making excuses for him, even to myself. I was so good at it. It was a skill I had perfected over 15 years. Another hour, 10 o'clock. The quiet in the house was getting louder. I started to feel that familiar ache in my chest, the feeling of being forgotten. This wasn't the first time, not by a long shot. He had a way of being absent on the days that were supposed to matter. Our anniversary, a few years back, he had a work emergency that kept him in the office until after midnight. He came home and didn't even remember what day it was until I said something. My 40th birthday. He planned a big dinner with all our friends, but he drank too much, too fast. Before we even left the house, he spent the whole night talking to everyone but me. I felt like a prop at my own party. He always had a reason, a good one, a plausible one, and I always accepted it. Because what was the alternative? Fighting? An argument that would end with him walking out for 3 days? The silence was easier. It was just so lonely. I sent him a text around 10:30, just a simple, "Hey, hope you're having fun. Is everything okay?" I stared at my phone for 20 minutes. Nothing. He didn't even read it. That's when the hope started to curdle. It turned into something else, something cold and heavy. I knew he wasn't coming home anytime soon. I knew I was going to be alone when the clock struck 12. Again. I thought about all the years I had spent minimizing myself to make room for him, making my needs smaller, making my feelings quieter, so he would have more space, so he wouldn't feel pressured. I thought that's what love was, making yourself small enough for someone else to fit. But standing there, in that quiet house, I realized he wasn't taking up the space I'd made. He was just gone, and I was the one left rattling around in all this emptiness I had created. I walked over to the window. It was snowing outside, softly. Our neighbors across the street had their lights on. I could see them through their window, a whole family in the living room, laughing. Another neighbor's house had a party going on. Cars were lined up on the street. The whole world was celebrating. And I was standing in the dark, looking out. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I turned off the television. The fake cheerfulness was making me sick. I went back to the kitchen and started putting the food away. I wrapped his plate and put it in the refrigerator. It felt so final, like I was packing up the hope I'd had for the night. I left my own plate on the counter. I wasn't hungry. I just sat down at the kitchen table, in the silence. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I just felt hollow. That's the only word for it. A deep, profound hollowness. I thought about my sister, Natalie. I could call her. She would be angry for me. She would tell me I deserved better, but I didn't want to hear it. Not then. Hearing it out loud would make it too real. I just wanted to sit in the quiet and let the reality of it wash over me. The reality was that my husband didn't want to be with me. It was that simple. He didn't want to be with me on a regular Tuesday, and he didn't want to be with me on New Year's Eve. He had been gone for months, maybe years. His body was just the last part of him to leave. I don't know how long I sat there. Time felt strange. It was dragging and flying by all at once. 11 o'clock came and went. 11:30. I looked at the clock. 20 minutes until midnight. 20 minutes until another year of this. And then I heard a sound, a soft knock on the front door. It startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Peter wouldn't knock. He had a key. My heart started beating a little faster. Who would be here now? I got up from the table and walked to the door. I looked through the peephole, and I saw a face I hadn't seen in years. It was Marcus. Marcus, a friend of our family from way back, before I was even married to Peter. He was a friend of my older brother's, mostly. He used to be around all the time when we were younger. He was always kind, respectful, one of those genuinely good people. I hadn't seen him in, it must have been close to 20 years. He'd moved away. What was he doing here? I opened the door. He looked older, of course. We all did, but his eyes were the same, kind. He looked surprised to see me. Then his expression changed. He saw it immediately. He saw the whole story on my face before I said a single word. He told me he was in town visiting his parents for the holidays. He said he knew I lived in this neighborhood, and he was just taking a walk. And on a whim, he decided to see if this was the right house. He said he just wanted to say hello. He looked past me into the quiet house. He saw the single glass on the table, the silence. He said, "Laura, is everything okay?" And that's when I broke. All the years of holding it in, of being strong, of being the steady one, it all just crumbled. I didn't sob. I didn't make a sound. The tears just started rolling down my face. Silent, hot. I couldn't stop them. I didn't even try. I just stood there in the doorway, crying in front of a man I hadn't seen in 2 decades. He didn't look away. He didn't look uncomfortable. He just looked at me with this incredible gentleness. He asked if he could come in. I just nodded and stepped back. He came inside and closed the door behind him. He didn't try to hug me or touch me. He just stood there, giving me a moment. He asked if I wanted to talk about it, and for the first time, I did. I wanted to tell someone who wasn't my sister, someone with no stake in it, someone who didn't know the Peter of today, but the Peter I used to describe all those years ago. We went and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd been sitting alone just minutes before. But now it felt different. I started talking, and it all came out, everything. The years of loneliness, the constant feeling of being second best, the anniversaries, the birthdays, the excuses, the way he shut down conversations, the way he made me feel like a burden. The phone turned face down on the table, the distance that had become a chasm. Tonight, how he'd promised he'd be back. I told him everything. The words just poured out of me. It was like a dam had broken, and he just listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions. He didn't say, "You should do this," or "You should do that." He just sat there, his full attention on me, and he listened. He made me feel heard, truly, deeply heard, for the first time in so long I can't even remember. When I finally stopped, my voice hoarse, I felt empty, but it was a different kind of empty, not the hollow ache from before. This was a clean empty, a peaceful empty, like a room that had finally been cleared of all the clutter. He looked at me, and he said something so simple. He told me that what I was feeling was valid, that I wasn't crazy for feeling this way. He told me that I mattered. My feelings mattered. No one had said that to me in years. Peter certainly hadn't. He always made me feel like my feelings were an inconvenience. But Marcus, he said it like it was the most obvious fact in the world. We just sat there for a minute in the quiet. It was a comfortable quiet now, not a lonely one. He started telling me a bit about his life, what he'd been up to, his job, his family, a real conversation, a give and take. I asked him questions. He asked me questions. I felt like a person again, a whole person with thoughts and a life beyond just being Peter's wife. He made me feel visible. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:58, 2 minutes to midnight, and in that moment I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't watching the clock, waiting for my husband. I wasn't thinking about him at all. I was just there, in my kitchen, talking to an old friend, and then we heard it, the sound of a key in the lock. The front door opened, and then it slammed shut. Peter was home. He walked into the kitchen. He was drunk. You could see it in the way he stood, a little unsteady. He had this look on his face, cocky, confident. It was the look he always had when he came home late after a fight or a disappearance. The look that said, "Here I am. The fun is over. Now you can be grateful I came back at all." He was expecting to find me on the sofa, probably crying or looking sad and small. He was expecting me to be waiting for him, exactly where he left me, ready to accept his half-hearted apology and pretend it was all okay. That's what he was expecting. But that's not what he saw. He saw me at the kitchen table. He saw me sitting with another man. He saw that I wasn't crying. I wasn't wringing my hands. I wasn't looking at him with desperate, pleading eyes. I was just calm. He saw me in the middle of a conversation, a real one. He saw me looking at someone who was looking back at me with respect. He stopped dead in the doorway. The confident smirk on his face just vanished. It was replaced by confusion, pure, unfiltered confusion. It was like his brain couldn't process the scene. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I had gone off book. For the first time in our entire marriage, he was looking at me and realizing that I had a life that didn't revolve around him, that my world didn't stop turning the second he walked out the door. He saw me as a separate person, and it terrified him. The silence in the room was thick. Peter just stared, from me to Marcus, back to me. Marcus stood up, very slowly and calmly. He was a bigger guy than Peter, not threatening, just solid. He had a presence. He looked at Peter, and then he looked at me. He asked me quietly if I wanted him to leave, and I said, "No, please stay." My voice was steady. It didn't even waver. I surprised myself. Peter's eyes narrowed. He took a step into the room. He tried to get his confidence back. He tried to play his usual role, the man of the house, in charge. He looked at Marcus. He didn't recognize him at first. He asked who he was. His tone was aggressive, demanding. Before Marcus could answer, I did. I told Peter his name. I reminded him that Marcus was an old family friend. Peter's face flickered with a vague memory, but the anger was still there. He wanted to know what Marcus was doing in our house at midnight on New Year's Eve. He was trying to create a narrative, a story where he was the victim, the wronged husband. It was his go-to move, avoid accountability by creating a new conflict. But it didn't work this time. Marcus spoke. His voice was completely level. He said he was in the neighborhood visiting family. He said he'd knocked on the door to say hello and that I had invited him in. He didn't say anything about finding me in distress. He was protecting me. He was just stating the simple facts. And then he said the thing that changed everything. He said it so gently, so casually. He said, "It was a coincidence, actually. I just ran into one of your coworkers, Peter, at that party over on Maple Street." The air went out of the room. Peter froze. I could see the panic flash in his eyes. A party. Not a quick drink with a few friends. A party. Marcus kept talking, still in that same calm tone. He said he'd been talking to this coworker, a woman named Sarah. He said Sarah mentioned that she worked with Peter. And then he looked at me. With so much kindness in his eyes, as if to soften the blow he knew was coming. He said, "She seemed to think you and Peter weren't really together anymore." There it was, the piece that I had been missing, the piece that made everything else make sense. The distant behavior, the hidden phone, the irritation, the need for space. He hadn't been pulling away from the marriage. He had been dismantling it, in secret. He had been building a new story for himself, for other people. A story where he was the unhappily married man, stuck in a relationship that was already over, basically living separate lives. That's what Marcus said the coworker had said. That was the phrase. He was laying the groundwork for his escape, telling people our marriage was dead, long before he ever bothered to tell me. So when he finally left, he would be the victim, the guy who had been suffering in silence for so long. He wouldn't be the man who abandoned his wife. He would be the man who was finally setting himself free. I looked at Peter. His face was pale. He was cornered. The narrative he had so carefully constructed had just been blown apart, and it wasn't me who did it. I didn't snoop. I didn't investigate. The truth had just walked in the front door. He opened his mouth to deny it, to lie. I could see it forming, the excuse, the justification, the story about how this Sarah person must have misunderstood, but I didn't let him. I held up a hand, just a small, simple gesture, and he stopped. I looked right at him, and for the first time I wasn't looking at the man I loved or the man I was afraid of losing. I was looking at a stranger, a weak, cowardly stranger who was so afraid of being the bad guy that he tried to rewrite our entire life behind my back. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to tell me it wasn't true. All the fight, all the desperation, it was just gone, replaced by a profound, chilling clarity. I said, "It's 1 minute past midnight, Peter." My voice was quiet. "Happy New Year." I continued to look at him. "I'm done," I said. Just those 2 words. I told him I was done being the only one holding this marriage together. I told him I was done waiting for him to come home. I told him I would not spend another year of my life feeling invisible. I told him that this, right here, was the end. He just stared at me, and then the panic set in. But it wasn't the panic of a man who is losing the love of his life. It was the panic of a man who is losing control. He had expected me to be his soft place to land, his safety net, the one person who would always be there no matter how badly he behaved. He never imagined that the safety net could just disappear. He started talking, fast. He said I was overreacting, that I was being emotional. He tried to turn it around on me. He brought up Marcus. He tried to imply that something was going on. He was throwing everything at the wall, trying to see what would stick, trying to make me the one who had to defend myself. It was so predictable, so pathetic. I just sat there and let him talk. I didn't engage. I didn't argue. His words had no power over me anymore. They were just noise. Marcus, who had been standing silently this whole time, spoke up. He told Peter that he thought it was time for him to leave. He said it wasn't a request. Peter looked at him, then back at me. He was looking for an ally. He found none. He finally seemed to realize that he had no power in this room. He turned and walked out of the kitchen. A few moments later, we heard the door to the guest room slam shut. Silence again. But this time, it was my silence. I was in control of it. Marcus looked at me. He asked if I was going to be okay. I took a deep breath, a real deep breath. And I said, "Yes, I think I am." And I knew it was true. The next morning, I woke up early. I felt calm. The house was quiet. Peter was still in the guest room. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The table where my entire life had changed just hours before. I thought about what I needed to do, not what I wanted to do or what I should do, what I needed to do. For me, the first thing I did was call my sister. I told her everything, the whole story of the night before. She was quiet on the other end of the line for a long time. Then she just said, "It's about time, Laura. I'm on my way." She came over an hour later. She brought bagels and a hug that I didn't know I needed so badly. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just sat with me, and we started making a plan. The first step was the finances. For years, everything had been joint. Our accounts, our credit cards. Peter managed most of it. He said he was better with numbers. I realize now that was just another form of control. Natalie sat with me at my computer. She helped me open my own bank account, a checking account, and a savings account, all in my name. Laura Hayes, not Mrs. Peter Hayes, just me. It felt like such a small thing, typing my name into those boxes on the screen, but it was huge. It was the first brick in a new foundation. Then I went through my pay stubs. I figured out how much of my salary was directly deposited into our joint account. I filled out the form to have it rerouted to my new account. I was taking back my own money, my own work, my own life. Peter finally came out of the guest room around noon. He looked terrible. He looked scared. He tried to talk to me. He started with an apology, a vague blanket apology for how things went down last night. It was the same kind of apology he always gave, one that didn't admit any specific wrongdoing, one that was designed to just end the conflict so we could go back to pretending. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I told him I had opened my own bank accounts. I told him my paycheck would no longer be going into the joint account. I told him we needed to talk about separating everything else. The look on his face, it was pure shock. He had never seen this side of me. The practical, efficient, no-nonsense administrator. He was used to the patient, forgiving wife. He didn't know how to handle this version of Laura. He started to argue. He said I was being rash. He said we could work through this. He said we just needed to talk. It was amazing how much he wanted to talk, now that he was losing control. For years I had begged him to talk to me, and now he was the one begging. But it wasn't about love. It was about logistics. It was about his comfortable life falling apart. He didn't want to lose me. He wanted to not be inconvenienced. I told him we could talk, but we would be talking about the terms of our separation. That was the only conversation I was interested in having. He left the house after that. He said he needed to clear his head. The old me would have worried. I would have sat by the phone, waiting for him to come back. The new me just felt relief. The silence he left behind wasn't lonely anymore. It was peaceful. Later that week, things started to shift outside the house too. I got a call from Marcus. He was just checking in. He wanted to make sure I was okay. We talked for a while. He told me something interesting. He said he'd gotten a message from that coworker of Peter's, Sarah. Apparently, after Marcus had left the party, Peter had stayed. He had gotten very drunk, and he had started complaining to Sarah and a few others about his crazy, emotional wife. He told them I was paranoid, that I was trying to control him. He was trying to get ahead of the story, to paint me as the villain before the truth got out. But it backfired. Sarah, the coworker, had seen the way Peter's face changed when Marcus. He just stood there. The words hung in the space between us, solid and real. We will only discuss the terms of our separation. They were my words, but they felt like they belonged to someone else, someone stronger. Peter's face, which had been a mask of confused apology, finally broke. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was disbelief, a deep, profound shock, as if I had just started speaking a language he'd never heard. Laura. He said my name like it was a question. What are you talking about? Separation? Don't be ridiculous. His words were just noise. The humming of the refrigerator felt louder. More important, I turned my back on him and picked up his plate from the table. The beef Wellington was cold. The potatoes were stiff. I scraped it all into the trash can. A small, violent sound. It was just a drink, he said to my back. I lost track of time. What did Marcus say to you? Did he put these ideas in your head? There it was. The pivot. It was never about his actions. It was always about someone else's influence. My sister, my friends. Now Marcus. He couldn't imagine a world where my thoughts were my own. I picked up my own untouched plate and did the same. Scraped it clean. Laura, talk to me. His voice was closer now. I could feel the warmth of his body behind me, a warmth I had craved for years. Now it felt like a threat, a cage closing in. I placed the plates in the dishwasher, my movements slow and deliberate. Each clink of ceramic against the rack was a period at the end of a sentence. Done. Finished. Over. You're tired, he tried, his tone softening into the one he used when he was trying to manage me. The gentle, patronizing voice of a man calming a hysterical animal. You've been alone all night. You're emotional. We'll talk about this in the morning. I closed the dishwasher, turned around. I leaned back against the counter, crossing my arms. It made me feel anchored, solid. There's nothing to talk about in the morning, Peter, except the logistics. Logistics? He laughed, but it was a thin, brittle sound. The logistics of what? How you're going to come to your senses? No. The logistics of you finding somewhere else to stay. The blank wall of his face finally cracked. A flicker of something ugly passed through his eyes. Rage. Pure and simple. The charisma fell away like a dropped coat, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the man underneath. The man who had been telling his co-workers our marriage was over while I set the table for two. You can't be serious, he hissed, taking a step forward. After 20 years? You're throwing this all away because I was late on New Year's Eve? I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just held his gaze. No, I said, my own voice calm. So calm it scared me. You threw this away a long time ago. I'm just the one who's finally cleaning it up. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. He had no script for this. I had always been the fixer, the planner, the one who smoothed things over. My compliance was the foundation of his world, and it was gone. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found charming. Now it just looked desperate. Fine, he spat. Fine. You need space. I'll give you space. He turned and stalked out of the kitchen. I listened to his heavy footsteps on the stairs, the slam of our bedroom door. Our bedroom. The word sounded foreign. I stood in the silence. It was different now. The old silence had been heavy, full of waiting and disappointment. This silence was light. It was empty. It was mine. A blank page. I didn't go upstairs. I walked down the hall to the spare room, the one we kept for guests who rarely came. The air was cool and still. I pulled back the floral comforter, the sheets crisp and cold. I changed out of my dress, the one I had bought just for tonight, and left it in a heap on the floor. I would throw it out tomorrow. I slid into the bed and turned onto my side, facing the window. The snow had stopped. The moon cast a pale, clean light over everything. I didn't cry. I felt a strange and hollow peace. The dam hadn't just broken. It had been washed away completely. There was nothing left to hold back. I thought I would lie awake all night, my mind racing, but I didn't. I closed my eyes. and for the first time in years I fell asleep without waiting for the sound of a key in the lock. I woke to the pale gray light of New Year's Day. The house was silent. For a moment, a familiar dread pooled in my stomach, the dread of a morning after apology, the performance of contrition I would be expected to accept. But then I remembered, it wasn't my performance to watch anymore. I sat up. The spare room felt like a neutral country, a safe zone. I got out of bed, found an old sweatshirt and leggings in the closet, and pulled them on. I walked quietly into the hallway. The door to the master bedroom was still closed. I went downstairs. The kitchen was exactly as I had left it, clean, empty. Peter had made an attempt, though. 2 mugs sat on the counter next to the coffee maker, a pot half full, the offer of a truce, a return to normalcy. I walked right past it. I opened the refrigerator and took out the bottle of water. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus had sat, where the truth had finally come out. I took out my phone. My fingers didn't shake as I found Natalie's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Laura, is everything okay?" "I'm okay," I said, and the words were true. "I'm more than okay, but I need your help." There was a pause, and then the sound of rustling, of her sitting up in bed. "What do you need?" No questions, no surprise, just that. "What do you need?" "I need you to come get me, and I need to go to the bank." "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. "Wear your warmest coat." The line went dead. I took a long drink of water. It felt like I was washing away 20 years of dust. I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate. Peter appeared in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a sweater. He looked tired. He looked older. He saw me at the table, the water bottle in my hand, the coffee mugs untouched on the counter. "Morning," he said, his voice tentative. I just looked at him. "I made coffee," he added, gesturing toward the machine. "I don't want any." He sighed, leaning against the door frame. He looked smaller today, less powerful without the shield of his public charm. "Laura, can we please just talk about this? Last night was a mess." "I know that." "Yes, it was," I agreed, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He thought he had an opening. "I'm sorry, okay? I am truly sorry. I should have been here." It was a good apology, the kind that used to work, but I saw it for what it was, a tool, a key he thought would unlock my forgiveness. "Natalie is coming to get me," I said simply. His face tightened. "Why? Where are you going?" "We have some errands to run." "Errands? On New Year's Day? What's more important than fixing this?" "Me." The word was a shout inside my head. "I am," but I didn't say it. I didn't need to. He wouldn't understand it anyway. As I was about to stand up, my phone buzzed on the table, a text message, then another, right away. It wasn't my phone. It was his. He'd left it on the counter last night. The screen lit up. I saw the name before he could move. "Sarah." "Is everything okay? You just disappeared last night. I was worried." "Sarah. Call me when you can. I hope she didn't give you too much of a hard time." "She." He lunged for the phone, snatching it off the counter. But it was too late. I had seen it. We both knew I had. The intimacy of it, the casual concern, the shared assumption that I was the problem, the hard time. He stood there, clutching the phone like a shield, his face pale. "Laura," he started, "it's not what you think." And for the first time, I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was dry and brittle. "Isn't it, Peter?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "Isn't it exactly what I think? You weren't just telling your co-workers our marriage was over. You were auditioning your next wife." He had nothing to say. The blank wall was back, but this time it was riddled with cracks. He looked trapped, utterly and completely trapped. I stood up and grabbed my purse from the counter. I heard a car horn honk lightly outside. Natalie, always on time. I walked to the front door, pulling on my coat. I didn't look back. "Where are you going?" he called after me, his voice finally cracking with real panic. The panic of losing control. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. "I'm going to open a new bank account," I said, looking over my shoulder at him, a stranger standing in the house we had built together. "And then I'm going to start my new life." I opened the door, and the cold, clean air of the first day of the year hit my face. It felt like freedom. The front door clicked shut behind me. It was a soft sound, but in the ringing silence of the morning, it felt like a gunshot. The cold January air was a shock against my face. It was sharp and clean, and I breathed it in deep, one breath, then another. I walked to my car. My hands were steady on the wheel, not shaking. I had expected them to shake. For 20 years, any hint of conflict with Peter sent a tremor through my body, a deep internal vibration of anxiety, of wanting to fix it, to smooth it over. But there was no tremor now, just a strange, hollowed-out calm. The key turned, the engine caught. The sound was a low hum, a welcome noise that filled the space my husband's absence used to occupy. I backed out of the driveway, my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. The house looked the same, tidy brick, neat lawn dusted with a thin layer of snow. A perfect picture. From the outside, no one would ever know the foundation was rotten. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I didn't have to look. I knew it was him. It buzzed again and again, a frantic, desperate rhythm. I pictured him standing in the kitchen, staring at the empty space where I had been. His control, for the first time, had slipped completely from his grasp. He was pulling at the strings and finding they were cut. I drove. The streets were quiet. The world was sleeping off its celebration. New Year's Day, a day for beginnings. The irony was not lost on me, but it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a fact, simple, undeniable. At a red light, I finally picked up the phone. 3 missed calls, 4 text messages. "Laura, where are you? Come back. We need to talk." "Don't be ridiculous. This is our life." "Laura, answer me." I read the words. They were just pixels on a screen, the commands of a man who was used to being obeyed. His panic wasn't for me. It wasn't for us. It was for the loss of his comfort, the loss of his narrative, the one where he was the long-suffering husband, and I was the quiet, accommodating wife who would always be there, always, waiting. I placed the phone face down in the passenger seat, the same way he always did with his. The gesture felt significant, a small act of rebellion that was entirely my own. The bank was almost empty. A young woman with tired eyes and a polite smile greeted me. "How can I help you today?" "I'd like to open a checking account," I said. My voice was even, clear, the voice of the administrator. I was at work, the woman who handled logistics and solved problems. I had forgotten she existed inside my own home. She nodded, sliding a form across the counter. "Of course. I'll just need you to fill this out." I took the pen. It felt heavy in my hand, a tool. I filled out the form. Name, address, the old address. For now, social security number, all the little data points that made up a life. My name, Laura Walker. For years, I had been an extension of him. Mrs. Peter Walker, Peter's wife. At parties with his colleagues, even with some of our friends. I was an afterthought, an accessory to his charisma. I signed my name at the bottom of the page. Laura Walker, just that. It looked strange on its own, unfamiliar and powerful. The teller processed the paperwork. "And how much would you like to deposit to open the account?" I had my checkbook with me. I always had it. I was the one who managed the household finances, paid the bills from our joint account. I knew exactly how much was in there. I wrote a check for half of it. Not a penny more, not a penny less. It was a clean surgical cut. "There you are," the teller said, handing me a starter set of checks and a new debit card. "Your card will be active in an hour." "Thank you," I said. I walked out of the bank and into the cold, bright morning. The card was cool plastic in my hand. It was real. It was mine. I got back in the car and drove to Natalie's. My phone had buzzed a few more times. I ignored it. The noise was distant now, unimportant. Natalie lived in a small, cluttered bungalow across town. It always smelled of coffee and her dog, Buster, a scruffy terrier mix who yapped excitedly when I pulled into her driveway. She opened the door before I could knock. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't say, "What happened?" She just looked at my face. She saw the exhaustion there, but she also saw something else, something new. "You're here," she said. It was a statement, not a question. "I'm here," I confirmed. "Coffee's on," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "Buster, hush." Her living room was a mess of books and blankets. It was lived in. It was warm. It was safe. I sat on her lumpy sofa, and she handed me a mug. The heat seeped into my hands. "I left him," I said. The words hung in the air between us. Natalie just nodded slowly, her expression serious. "Okay." I went to the bank. I opened my own account. A small smile touched her lips. "Good." And then, it all came out. Not in a flood of tears like the night before with Marcus, but in a calm, steady stream. The New Year's Eve dinner, Peter's excuses, the silence, Marcus's arrival, the conversation with Sarah's name in it. The dam had already broken. This was just the river flowing in its new course. I told her about the texts on his phone, the ones from Sarah, the thinking of you and the can't wait for this to be over. The casual intimacy that he had denied me for years, given away so freely to someone else. It wasn't just that he was having an affair, I explained, looking into my coffee cup, or an emotional one, or whatever it was. It was the lie he told everyone else, that our marriage was over, that he was trapped. He was painting himself as a victim while I was at home trying to hold it all together. I looked up at her. He never saw me, Nat. Not really. He saw a function, a role I was supposed to play in his life, the supportive wife, the forgiving wife, the one who would always wait. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. She reached out and put her hand over mine. Her skin was warm. "I saw you, Laura," she said softly. "I always saw you." My eyes burned, but the tears didn't fall. It was enough to be seen. It was everything. We sat in silence for a while. The only sounds were the ticking of the clock on her wall and Buster's soft snores from his bed in the corner. It was a comfortable silence, a shared silence, not the weaponized, empty silence of my house. My phone buzzed again on the coffee table. Peter's name glowed on the screen. Natalie glanced at it. "Are you going to answer?" I looked at the phone, at his name. I thought about the 20 years of rushing to answer, of smoothing things over, of managing his moods. I thought about the man who came home after midnight, his face a mask of fury because I wasn't performing my sadness correctly. He wasn't calling to apologize. He was calling to regain control, to pull me back into the story he had written for us. "No," I said. The word was solid, final. I'm not a part of that story anymore. I reached over and held the power button down. The screen went black. Later, Natalie showed me to the spare room. It was small, with a single bed and a small desk by the window. The walls were bare. The sheets were clean and smelled of lavender. It was a blank space, an empty room, but it wasn't lonely. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked out the window at the gray winter sky. There was a whole world out there that I hadn't really been a part of, a life waiting to be lived. My life. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. But for the first time in a very, very long time, I felt a flicker of something I barely recognized. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was smaller than that. It was possibility. The room was quiet, and the quiet was mine. I was not waiting anymore. I was beginning. The quiet in Natalie's house was different. It wasn't the hollow, waiting quiet of my own home. It wasn't a space defined by someone's absence. It was a soft, settled quiet. The hum of her refrigerator was just a hum. The tick of the clock on the mantel was just time passing. It wasn't a countdown. I was sitting on her sofa, a thick wool blanket tucked around my legs. The sun was low in the sky, casting long, watery blue shadows across the living room carpet. January 1st, a new year. It felt like a cliché. It also felt true. Natalie moved around me without a sound. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She just existed. A warm, solid presence in the room. She placed a mug of tea on the coaster beside me. The steam smelled of chamomile and honey. My hands were still cold, and I wrapped them around the ceramic, letting the warmth soak into my skin. I hadn't spoken much since we'd left my house, the house that was no longer mine. Not really. The words had all been spent the night before. Now there was only this strange, floating calm. The calm after the dam breaks, after the flood, when all the debris has been washed away and you're left standing on bare, scoured earth. My phone, which Natalie had placed on the end table, buzzed. It was Peter. Of course, it was Peter. I didn't have to look. I could feel the frantic energy of his message through the wood of the table. I pictured him in the empty house, pacing the kitchen floor where I had stood for hours, where Marcus had sat, where our life together had finally, officially ended. Was he angry, panicked? Was he performing remorse for an audience of one? I left the phone where it was. "You don't have to look at that," Natalie said softly. She was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I know, but I did. Not yet, but soon. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. It was about remembering. I needed to see the words. I needed to see the proof of what I had escaped. Natalie nodded, understanding. "Soup's almost ready," she said, and disappeared back into the kitchen. Soup, tea, a blanket. These were the things that were real now. Simple, solid, not the ghost of a promise, not the echo of a laugh from a party I wasn't invited to. After a few minutes, I picked up the phone. The screen was bright against the dimming room, a wall of text messages. "Laura, where are you? Pick up the phone. This is ridiculous. You can't just leave." "I'm worried. Are you with your sister? Just tell me you're safe." I read the last one, and a bitter laugh escaped my lips. It was a small, dry sound. He wasn't worried about my safety. He was worried about his control. He was mapping my location, trying to re-establish the perimeter. I kept scrolling. "Look, I know last night was bad. I was drunk. I said things. You completely overreacted. It was just Marcus. He's always had a thing for you, you know that. He twisted everything." The blame shift. So predictable. It was like watching a rerun of a show I had seen 100 times. He was following a script. His script. The one where he was the wronged party, the misunderstood husband, and I was the hysterical, oversensitive wife. For 20 years, I had played my part. I had learned my lines, I'd hit my marks. No more. I put the phone down, face up this time, a small act of defiance. It buzzed again, almost immediately. I ignored it. The smell of chicken noodle soup filled the small house. Natalie brought 2 bowls into the living room on a tray and set them on the coffee table. She didn't turn on the television. We just sat there, in the quiet, and ate. The soup was hot and salty. It felt like an anchor pulling me back into my own body. "I opened the bank account," I said, my voice raspy. "Good," she replied, not looking up from her bowl. "I transferred half the money from the joint savings." "Good. He's going to be furious." At that, she finally looked at me. Her eyes were clear, unflinching. "Let him be," she said. "His anger isn't your problem to manage anymore, Laura." Her words landed with the simple weight of truth. His anger isn't your problem. For 2 decades, managing Peter's moods had been my second job, averting his displeasure, smoothing things over, making our home a soft place for him to land, no matter how hard he had been on me. I had absorbed his tempers, his silences, his disappointments. I had carried them for him so he wouldn't have to. I set my spoon down. I was full, not just of soup. I was full of a feeling I couldn't name. It was heavy and light at the same time. My phone buzzed again, and again, a rapid-fire series of messages. This time, I reached for it. I needed to see the next scene in the play. "You took money from our account. Are you serious?" "That's our money, Laura, for the house, for our future." "You can't do this. This is theft." There it was, the threat, the accusation, the cornered animal lashing out. He wasn't worried or sorry or sad. He was just angry that his assets were no longer under his complete control, that I was no longer under his complete control. I looked at the words on the screen, his words. They were just noise, like a car alarm going off down the street. Annoying, but distant. It had no power over me here, in this quiet room. Then, a different notification popped up, a name I hadn't expected to see, Marcus. My heart did a strange little flutter. It wasn't romantic, it was recognition, the memory of his kindness, the simple human decency of it. My finger hovered over the notification. "Laura, it's Marcus. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Natalie gave me your number. I hope that's all right. No need to reply. Just thinking of you. No demands, no accusations, just a simple question, an offering of space. No need to reply." He was giving me an out. He was giving me control. The contrast between his message and Peter's was a physical thing. Peter's texts were like fists, banging on a locked door. Marcus's was a hand, held out, palm open. I typed a reply. My fingers were slow, deliberate. "Thank you, Marcus. I'm okay. I'm with my sister." I hit send before I could second guess it. It felt right. Acknowledging a kindness was not a betrayal of my own newfound solitude. It was part of it. It was choosing to let goodness in instead of just shutting badness out. Natalie took our empty bowls. "You should get some sleep," she said. "You look exhausted." She was right. The adrenaline had worn off completely, leaving behind a deep, bone-aching weariness. It was the exhaustion of years, of holding my breath, of waiting. "The guest room is ready," she said. "Clean sheets. And I put some of my old pajamas on the bed. They'll be big on you, but they're comfortable." I stood up, the blanket falling from my lap. I felt a sudden, overwhelming wave of gratitude for my sister, for her quiet competence, for her soup and her clean sheets and her unflinching support. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her. She was solid, real. "Thank you, Nat," I whispered into her shoulder. "Always," she whispered back, hugging me tightly. "Go on, sleep." In the guest room, everything was simple: a bed, a nightstand, a lamp. The pajamas were soft, worn cotton. I changed out of the clothes I'd been wearing for what felt like a lifetime. I washed my face in the small adjoining bathroom, staring at the woman in the mirror. She looked tired. She looked older than 42, but her eyes were clear. For the first time in a long time, they were completely, utterly clear. I climbed into the bed. The sheets were crisp and cool. I didn't check my phone again. I just switched off the lamp and lay there in the perfect, peaceful dark. There were no ghosts here, no expectations, no silence that screamed. There was only space, and for the first time in 20 years, the space was all mine. I fell asleep in minutes, a deep and dreamless sleep, the kind I had forgotten was even possible. The last text from Peter glowed on my phone screen. "You'll regret this, Laura. You stole from me." I read the words over and over. They were meant to scare me, to make me feel small and criminal. The old Laura would have felt a spike of panic. She would have drafted a dozen apologetic replies, explaining herself, trying to smooth the waters, to fix what he had broken. She would have worried about his anger, about the consequences. But the old Laura was gone. I felt nothing. Not fear, not anger, just a profound and chilling emptiness where my love for him used to be. It was the quiet that comes after a violent storm has passed, leaving behind a landscape you no longer recognize. He hadn't accused me of leaving. He hadn't accused me of betrayal. He accused me of theft. That told me everything I needed to know. It was never about us. It was about what was his. I set the phone face down on Natalie's coffee table. A habit I'd learned from him, I realized. Only my reasons were different. He did it to hide his world from me. I was doing it to protect mine from him. The quiet of my sister's house was a balm. It was a normal Saturday morning quiet, filled with the scent of coffee and the distant hum of a dishwasher. It wasn't the weaponized silence Peter used, the kind that screamed with disapproval. This was peace. Natalie came in from the kitchen, 2 mugs in her hands. She set one in front of me. She'd seen the cascade of messages light up my screen. She didn't ask what they said. She already knew the shape of his anger. "Drink this," she said. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were firm. "Then we make a plan." I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic. The heat seeped into my cold fingers. A plan. I was good at plans. My entire life had been a series of plans, schedules, and lists designed to keep our world running smoothly. But they were always our plans. This was the first one that would be just for me. "He knows about the money," I said. It wasn't a question. "Of course he does," Natalie said, taking a sip from her own mug. It was the first thing he'd check. Control. It's all he has. She was right. He hadn't texted to ask if I was safe. He hadn't asked where I was. He had checked the bank account. His panic wasn't for me. It was for his assets. The thought should have hurt. It didn't. It was just a fact. Like knowing the sky is blue or that fire is hot. Peter's love was conditional. Its primary condition was control. "He says I stole it," I murmured, the words tasting like ash. Natalie snorted. "Laura, you worked for 20 years. You managed that entire household. You paid every bill, organized every holiday, and kept his life in perfect order so he could go out and be the charming, successful Peter everyone loves. Half of that money is more yours than it is his. Don't you ever let him make you feel like a thief." Her words landed like stones, building a foundation under my feet. She saw me. She had always seen me. "You need a lawyer," she said, her tone shifting from sister to general. "Today. We're not waiting for him to make the next move. We're not going to be on the defensive. You're going to get ahead of this." A lawyer. The word felt heavy, official. It made the abstract decision I'd made on New Year's Eve into something real and binding, a legal document with signatures and consequences. For a second, a flicker of the old fear returned, the instinct to retreat, to avoid conflict. I looked at my phone, still dark on the table. I pictured his face, twisted in a drunken proprietary rage. I pictured him telling people our marriage was over while I set a table for two. The fear vanished. "Okay," I said. My voice was steady. "Yes, a lawyer." Natalie gave a single sharp nod. She finished her coffee, stood up, and went to her small desk in the corner of the living room. I heard the soft click of a laptop opening. While she searched, I sat in the silence. I thought about Sarah, the coworker. The mystery of their relationship suddenly seemed irrelevant. Were they sleeping together? Were they in love? Was he just lining her up as my replacement? It didn't matter. The specifics were just details. The real betrayal wasn't a person. It was the lie, the years of lies, the slow, methodical dismantling of my worth while I wasn't looking. He had been planning his exit for months, maybe longer, all while allowing me to plan a future that didn't exist. My phone buzzed. A jolt went through me, a conditioned response. My body tensed, bracing for another volley of rage from Peter. My hand hesitated over the screen. Natalie glanced over. "You don't have to look at that." "I know," I said. But I did. I needed to know. I flipped it over. It wasn't from Peter. It was from Marcus. "Thinking of you, Laura. I hope you're okay. No need to reply." That was it. Just 3 short sentences. There was no demand, no expectation, no accusation. It was just a quiet signal of support from across a distance. It was the opposite of Peter's texts, which were like fists hammering on a locked door. Marcus's message was a light left on in a window. A dam inside me didn't break. There were no more dams left. Instead, a slow, warm spring seemed to trickle into a space that had been dry for a very long time. It was the feeling of being seen, of being considered. I didn't reply. He had given me that permission. But I held the phone for a moment, the warmth of the screen a small comfort against my palm. "Found one," Natalie announced. She wrote a name and number on a sticky note. "Her name is Helen Croft, specialized in divorce, a real shark, according to the reviews. Exactly what we need. A shark." I didn't feel like a shark. I felt like a woman who had just woken up from a 20-year sleep. But I knew what Natalie meant. This wasn't a time for gentle negotiation. Peter wouldn't play fair. He never did. He would use charm, then pity, then intimidation. He would use every tool he had to win. I needed someone who knew how to fight. Natalie brought the sticky note over and placed it next to my mug. "Call her, Laura, right now, before the weekend really starts. They might have an emergency line." I looked at the name, Helen Croft. It sounded strong. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over the keypad. This was the point of no return. Opening a bank account was a private act of rebellion. Calling a lawyer was a declaration of war. I thought of the cold food on the New Year's Eve table. I thought of his phone, always face down. I thought of his words. "You stole from me." I took a breath. It felt like the first clean breath I had taken in years. I dialed the number. A receptionist answered, her voice professional and calm. "Croft & Associates, how can I help you?" My heart was beating a steady, determined rhythm. The sound was my own. "Hello," I said, my voice clear and even. "My name is Laura Jensen. I need to make an appointment." The name on the website was Catherine Davies Family Law. It sounded solid, dependable. I dialed the number before the fear could talk me out of it. My hand was steady. My voice when I spoke was a stranger's, calm and clear. I need to file for divorce. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a voice that was all business, but not unkind. "Okay," she said. "Can you tell me your name?" "Laura Sterling." I said it, and the name felt like an old coat I was about to take off. I told her everything. The story spilled out of me, but this time it wasn't a torrent of tears like it had been with Marcus. It was a list of facts. 15 years. The silence. The phone. Always face down. New Year's Eve. The money. She listened without interruption. The silence on her end was different from Peter's. It wasn't a weapon. It was space. Space for me to fill. When I finished, Ms. Davies spoke. "Laura," she said, her tone firm. "You did the right thing with the bank account. That was smart. It wasn't theft. It was self-preservation. From this moment on, that is the word you will use. Self-preservation." I wrote it down on the back of a grocery receipt. Self-preservation. "Now," she continued, "has he tried to contact you?" My phone buzzed on the counter, and again, a relentless, angry vibration. "He's trying right now," I said. "Do not answer. Do not speak to him on the phone. From now on, all communication must be in writing, text or email only. Is that understood? We need a record of everything." "Yes," I said. "Good. He will try to manipulate you. He will say you're destroying his life. He will say you're throwing everything away. He will tell you that you are making a mistake. He will not be sorry for what he did. He will only be sorry he got caught." Her words were like a script for a play I had already seen 100 times. Every argument, every circular conversation laid bare in the clinical language of a lawyer. It was validating. It was chilling. "I will file the initial petition tomorrow morning," she said. "He'll be served at his office. It's better that way. More public. Less room for him to create a scene with you." The thought of it made my stomach clench. Peter, at his office, being handed a stack of papers that would dismantle the perfect life he had curated for everyone else, the life he had excluded me from. "What do I do now?" I asked. My voice was small again. "You are at your sister's?" "Yes. Stay there for now if you feel safer. But the house is marital property. He cannot legally lock you out. In fact, I would advise you to go there and change the locks." "Can I do that?" "It's your house too, Laura. It is just as much yours as it is his. You need to secure your space." Secure your space. Another phrase I wrote down. It sounded revolutionary. After we hung up, I looked at my phone. 12 missed calls from Peter, 23 text messages. I opened them. My finger hovered over the screen. A strange disconnect settling over me, as if I were reading about 2 other people. "Laura, pick up the phone. We need to talk." This is insane. You can't just leave. "And you took my money? After everything I've done for you?" "My money, not our money." The mask was gone. There was no we. There never was. "You're being irrational. This is because of Marcus, isn't it? He put these ideas in your head." 15 years, Laura. You're throwing away 15 years over one stupid night. "I'm coming to Natalie's. We are going to sort this out like adults." My blood ran cold. I showed the last text to Natalie, who was sitting across from me at her kitchen table nursing a cup of tea. She read it, and her face hardened. "No," she said. Just that one word. She picked up her phone and typed. A moment later, my phone buzzed with a forwarded message. It was from Natalie to Peter. "Do not come here, Peter. Laura does not want to see you. If you show up, I will call the police." He didn't reply, but my own phone buzzed again. A new text from him. "You're turning my own family against me? Wow, Laura. Just wow. You've really lost it." I didn't feel lost. For the first time in years, I felt like I was holding a map. It was terrifying and blank in most places, but it showed a single, clear path forward. "Let's go," I said to Natalie. "Go where?" "Home. I have to change the locks." The locksmith was a young man with kind eyes who didn't ask any questions. He just got to work. Natalie made us both tea while he drilled out the old cylinders. The sound was violent, a screech of metal that echoed the tearing of my old life. I stood in the living room, wrapping my arms around myself. This was the room where I had waited. This was the spot on the floor where I had cried. This was the sofa where Marcus had sat and listened. The room was the same, but the air was different. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was just quiet. I walked into the kitchen. The 2 plates from New Year's Eve were still in the dishwasher. I hadn't run it. I opened the door and looked at them. Symbols of a hope that had finally, blessedly died. I added my mug and Natalie's, put in the soap, and pressed start. The sound of the water spraying was loud in the empty house, a cleansing. "All done, ma'am." The locksmith was standing in the doorway, holding a small ring with 2 shiny new keys. He handed them to me. They were cold and sharp in my palm. Real. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick. Natalie paid him and he left. We were alone. "Well," she said, her gaze soft, "it's your house now." "It's my house," I repeated. The words felt foreign. I walked to the front door and turned the new deadbolt. The click was solid, definitive, a sound of finality, a sound of beginning. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. I did not cry. I breathed, in, out. The air was mine. The silence was mine. The space was mine. Peter would have no key. He could not walk back in and reclaim the silence, fill the rooms with his absence. He was locked out. The realization was so profound, so seismic, that I had to hold onto the doorknob to steady myself. Later that evening, after Natalie had gone home with promises to call in the morning, I sat on the sofa in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. The street lights cast long, pale rectangles on the floor. For years, I had hated the nights, the long hours of waiting, the hollow echo of a 2-person house holding only 1 person. But this was different. I wasn't waiting for anyone. The quiet wasn't a punishment. It was peace. My phone, sitting on the cushion beside me, lit up. It wasn't the frantic, angry buzz of Peter's messages. It was a single, soft notification, a text from Marcus. "Just checking in. I hope you're okay." 3 simple sentences, no demands, no accusations, just care. The kind of care I had starved for, the kind of care I was learning to give myself. I typed back a reply. "I am. Thank you." It was the truest thing I had written in a very long time. I was okay, not fixed, not healed, but okay. The dam had broken and I had not drowned. I had been washed clean. I put the phone down, face up, on the cushion beside me. I curled up on the sofa, pulling an Afghan over me. I closed my eyes, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the swish of a passing car on the wet street, the sound of my own breathing, the sounds of my life, my own quiet life. And for the first time in 15 years, I fell asleep in my own home without waiting for the sound of a key in the lock. The silence was the first thing. It was a different kind of silence than the one I had lived in for years. The old silence was a presence. It was heavy, filled with things unsaid, with the humming of the refrigerator and the lonely ticking of the clock, each sound a reminder of an absence. It was Peter's silence. He created it, and he left me to drown in it. This new silence was space. It was clean, empty, It was a blank page, and it was mine. I stood in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I had waited for him, where the cold roast beef had sat like a monument to my foolishness. But the room felt different, bigger. I ran my hand along the cool granite of the countertop, the one I had picked out, the one he had called an extravagance. It felt solid, real. It was mine. The locksmith had been a kind man with gentle eyes. He hadn't asked any questions when I'd paid him in cash. "New year, new locks," he'd said, with a small professional smile. "Happens all the time." He'd handed me the 2 new keys. They felt heavy and powerful in my palm. A key is a small thing, a simple piece of metal, but it decides who belongs and who doesn't. For 20 years, Peter had belonged. Now he didn't. I spent the afternoon cleaning, not in the frantic, nervous way I used to clean before he came home, trying to create an illusion of perfect calm. This was different. I opened the windows, letting the crisp January air chase out the stale scent of his cologne and my disappointment. I threw away the wilted flowers from the dining room table. I packed the 2 uneaten plates of food from New Year's Eve into a trash bag. It was methodical, a reclamation. I was wiping down the front door when I heard the sound, the familiar purr of his car engine turning into the driveway. For a single cold second, the old reflex kicked in, a jolt of adrenaline, a tightening in my stomach. He's home. But then it passed. I didn't move. I just stood there, cloth in hand, and listened. I heard the car door shut, the crunch of his expensive shoes on the thin layer of snow covering the walkway. Then, the scrape, the metallic sound of his key sliding into the lock. It didn't turn. A jiggle, another scrape, more forceful this time. A pause. The silence stretched. I could picture him perfectly. His brow furrowed in confusion, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. He would assume the lock was frozen. He'd try again, jamming the key in, his patience already wearing thin. The jiggling became frantic, an angry, metallic rattling. Then, a loud knock, 3 sharp raps against the solid wood. "Laura?" I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. "Laura, open the door. The key isn't working." His voice was laced with irritation, but it was still his public voice, the one he used for neighbors and colleagues. Calm, reasonable. Another knock, harder this time. "Laura, what the hell is this? Are you in there?" My phone, sitting on the kitchen island, lit up. Peter. The screen glowed with his name. I watched it vibrate, a frantic buzzing against the silent granite. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. A moment later, it lit up again. A text message. "What is going on?" "Open the door." I remained still. I was a statue in my own home. The house was my armor. The knocks turned into bangs, hard, rhythmic thuds of his fist against the door. "Laura, I swear to God, if you don't open this door right now." The mask was slipping. The reasonable man was gone, and the angry, entitled child was taking his place, the one I knew so well. My phone buzzed again and again, a cascade of messages. This isn't funny. "Did you change the locks? Are you insane? You can't do this. This is my house too." "Laura, answer me." His words were little stones hitting a window. They made a sound, but they couldn't break through. Not anymore. I thought of my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Miss Davies, whom Natalie had recommended. I had sat in her office that morning, my hands trembling slightly as I held a cup of tea. "He will try to intimidate you," she had said, her voice calm and steady. "He will tell you that you have no right to the house. He will threaten you. He will try to make you feel small and irrational. Do not engage. The house is a marital asset, and until a court says otherwise, you have every right to reside there. You have established residency. He has not." Her words were a fortress around me. "Do not engage." I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. The banging stopped. The sudden silence was jarring. I crept to the living room window, peering through a slit in the blinds. He was standing on the porch, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. His shoulders were tense. He was pacing now, a tight, furious circle on our small porch. He was leaving a voicemail. I could almost hear the words, the carefully constructed narrative of the wronged husband dealing with his hysterical wife. My own phone buzzed. This time, it was Natalie. I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the screen. "Don't answer if it's him," she said immediately. "No hello." "It's you," I whispered. "Good. Are you okay? Did he show up?" "He's here. He's outside." "Is he yelling?" "He was, banging on the door. Now he's on the phone." "Okay," she said, her voice a lifeline of pure practicality. "Listen to me. You are safe. The door is locked. Do not answer it. Do not answer his calls. Let him burn himself out. He can't stand being ignored. It's the one thing that drives him crazy." She was right. Peter's power came from engagement. He needed an audience. He needed my reactions, my tears, my arguments, my eventual weary surrender. Silence was a vacuum where his power could not exist. "Okay," I said, my voice stronger. "Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. I can be there in 20 minutes. I'm okay, Nat, really. I think I'm okay." We hung up, and I felt a fresh wave of calm. This was my decision. I was seeing it through. The flurry of texts from Peter resumed, but the tone had shifted. He was trying a new tactic. "Laura, please, let's just talk about this. I know you're upset. I was a jerk. I know that. I'm sorry." "You completely misunderstood the situation with Sarah. She's just a friend. She feels terrible about how that all came out. The apology, the gaslighting. It was so predictable, it was almost boring. He wasn't sorry he had done it. He was sorry he had been caught. He was sorry his comfortable life was imploding. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about his own inconvenience, his image." Just as I was putting the phone down, another message came through. But it wasn't from Peter. It was from Marcus. My heart did a strange, quiet flip. His name on the screen looked so gentle compared to the angry block letters of Peter's. "Just checking in. Hope you're okay." That was it. 3 simple sentences. No demands, no questions, no expectations. Just a quiet signal of support from across the distance. It was the opposite of Peter's frantic, selfish noise. It was a hand resting gently on my shoulder. I typed back a single word. "Okay." I didn't need to say more. I had a feeling he would understand. I looked out the window again. Peter was gone. His car was no longer in the driveway. The porch was empty, save for the furious scuffed circles his shoes had made in the snow. A deep sense of relief washed over me, so profound it made my knees feel weak. I sank onto the sofa. The house was silent again. But this time, the silence was a victory. My phone buzzed one last time on the coffee table. I glanced at it. It was Peter. One final message. "Fine. Have it your way. Don't come crying to me when you realize what you've done." The threat was pathetic, empty. Where would he go? A hotel? His parents? And then I knew. Of course, the answer was so obvious. He would go to Sarah's. He would show up on her doorstep, playing the part of the wounded husband, finally driven from his home by his unstable wife. He would spin his story, the one he had been telling her all along, and she would let him in. She would comfort him. A year ago, that thought would have shattered me. It would have been a physical pain, a knife in my chest. But now, I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not anger, not even sadness. All I felt was a strange, hollowed-out sense of pity. For her, she was the new me. She was the one who would learn the weight of his silences, the chill of his emotional distance, the constant draining work of trying to please a man who could never truly be pleased. She was at the beginning of the story I had just finished. I stood up and went into the kitchen. My kitchen. I filled the kettle with water and set it on the stove. I opened the cupboard and took down my favorite mug, the one with the small painted sunflowers that Peter had always hated. As I waited for the water to boil, I looked around the quiet, clean space. It was just a room, walls and windows and countertops. But it was the first piece of my new life. It was a space I had reclaimed. The kettle began to whistle, a clear, steady sound in the peaceful silence of my own home. The silence that followed his last text was different. Before, the quiet in the house had been a hollow thing, an absence. It was the space left behind by Peter, a constant humming reminder of what wasn't there. But this silence was solid. It was full. It had weight and texture. I sat at my kitchen table, the one he had never really sat at, and I felt the quiet settle around me like a heavy protective blanket. It was mine. The house was mine. The silence was mine. On the polished wood of the tabletop, the new key gleamed under the recessed lighting, a single silver key. It looked so small, so simple, but it was a wall, it was a border. It was the period at the end of a sentence I had been trying to finish for a decade. My phone, lying face up beside the key, remained dark. I had expected a flood, a torrent of rage, of threats, of manipulations. But there was nothing. The quiet stretched. 1 minute, 5, 10. I knew him. I knew the way his mind worked. The silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. He was driving home, his mind racing, calculating his next move. He would have run through all the scenarios, the pleading, the anger, the performance of the wounded husband. He would be choosing his mask. I stood up and walked to the sink, my movements feeling deliberate, measured. I filled a glass with water. My hand was steady. I watched the water swirl, clear and clean. I thought, this is my water, from my faucet, in my glass. The thought was so simple, it was almost foolish, but it felt profound. Ownership. I had forgotten what it felt like. Then I heard it, the sound of a car engine cut abruptly, the familiar crunch of tires on the thin layer of snow covering our driveway, the solid thump of a car door shutting. My heart didn't leap. It didn't pound. It just gave a single, heavy thud inside my chest, a deep, internal acknowledgement. He's here. I didn't move. I stood at the sink, my back to the front of the house, and I listened. The soft crunch of footsteps on the stone path, each step measured, confident. He still believed he had the right to walk that path. A pause. I pictured him on the porch, staring at the door, probably frowning, confused that the lights were on but the door was locked. He would assume I'd made a mistake, that I'd accidentally bolted it from the inside. His key slid into the lock. The sound was sharp in the quiet house. A metallic scratch, then a turn, and then nothing. The deadbolt held, the new deadbolt, a moment of absolute stillness. Then the key tried again, jiggling this time, impatient. A frustrated metallic scraping. I could feel his irritation through the walls of the house. The distance was no longer a vague emotional concept. It was 3 inches of wood and a cylinder of steel. Laura? His voice, muffled by the door but still so familiar. It was his calm voice, the one he used with clients, with neighbors, the reasonable one. Laura, honey, open up. The key isn't working." I stayed silent. I took a slow sip of water. It was cool against my throat. The doorbell rang. 2 short, polite chimes. Ding dong. The sound of a visitor, a stranger. He was a stranger now. I walked back to the table and sat down. I placed my glass on a coaster. Natalie had bought them for me last Christmas. Bright blue, ceramic. Peter had hated them, said they were clutter. I ran my finger along the smooth, glazed edge. "Laura?" His voice was louder now. The politeness was fraying at the edges. "I know you're in there. I can see the lights. Open the door." I picked up my phone. My fingers moved across the screen, my movements precise. I opened my messages with Natalie. "He's here," I typed. "At the door." The reply was almost instant. "Don't open it. Don't say a word. Do you want me to come over?" "No, I'm okay." "Call 911 if he tries to break in. I mean it, Laura. I will." A loud bang on the door made me jump. Not a knock, a bang. The flat of his palm, I guessed. Or maybe his fist. "Laura, what the hell is this? Open the damn door." The mask was gone. The charming, reasonable man had been discarded on the welcome mat. This was the real Peter, the one who lived behind the face-down phone and the empty chair. I looked at my phone. I thought about Marcus, his gentle voice. He told her you were living separate lives. He had been building this narrative for months, painting me as the difficult one, the cold one, while he planned his exit. He wasn't just leaving me, he was erasing me. Another bang. Harder this time. The door vibrated. "This is my house, Laura. You can't just lock me out of my own house." My house now, I thought. The words were a silent declaration. I had paid the mortgage from my salary for 2 years, while he was getting his business off the ground. I had painted these walls. I had chosen the light fixture over the table. This house was soaked in my effort, my care, my waiting. His voice changed again. It dropped, becoming thick with a new tactic. Feigned concern. The performance was back on. "Laura, baby, are you okay? Did something happen? I was so worried when you didn't answer. Just let me in. Let me make sure you're all right." It was masterful, really. The seamless shift. Anyone walking by would hear a concerned husband, locked out by a wife having some kind of episode. He was always playing to an invisible audience, always protecting his image. I just sat there. I listened to his words. They were just noise, like television static. They had no meaning because the man saying them had no integrity. The dam inside me hadn't just broken on New Year's Eve. It had been dismantled. There was nothing left to hold back, and nothing left for his words to push against. He started rattling the doorknob, a frantic, desperate sound, the sound of control slipping. God damn it, Laura. After everything I do for us, for this family, you pull this? After I gave you space, this is how you thank me? Space. He called his absence space. He called his secrets space. He had given me a vacuum and called it a gift. The banging became rhythmic, a furious, steady pounding. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A drummer without a song. I picked up my phone again and sent a new text. This one to Marcus. I didn't know why. It just felt right, a counterweight to the ugliness at my door. I'm sorry if he contacts you, I wrote. He isn't happy. The banging stopped. The sudden silence was jarring. I held my breath. I heard his heavy sigh, a sound of pure theatrical exasperation. Then his voice, low and venomous, right near the door, as if he had his mouth close to the wood. You have no idea what you've just done, Laura. You think you're so smart? With your lawyer? With my money? You will regret this. I promise you. Then footsteps, angry, crunching steps retreating down the path. A car door slammed, the sound echoing in the cold night air. The engine roared to life, tires spinning for a moment on the snow before catching. And then he was gone. The silence that returned was different yet again. It was ringing. It was the quiet that comes after a storm, when the air is still charged with ozone. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the sheer force of doing nothing. I had not yelled. I had not cried. I had not begged. I had not opened the door. I had simply held my ground. I sat there for a long time. The house slowly settled around me. The hum of the refrigerator returned to the foreground. The clock on the wall ticked. My world, which had been shrinking for years, had just been reduced to the four walls of this house. And in that reduction, it felt, for the first time, infinite. My phone buzzed on the table, a message from Marcus. "He can't hurt you anymore, Laura. Don't be sorry, just be safe." His words were simple, direct. They weren't a promise to fix anything. They were just a statement of fact, a piece of truth offered quietly, without expectation. It was the opposite of Peter, all of it. I typed back a reply, my thumbs feeling slow and heavy. "I am safe." I added another line, because it felt important. It felt necessary. "Thank you for seeing me." I set the phone down, face up. I looked at the silver key still sitting there. It didn't look small anymore. It looked like everything. I picked it up. The metal was cool and solid in my palm. I closed my fingers around it, making a fist, my key, my house, my beginning. The silence came after the storm. Peter's final shout had been swallowed by the cold night air. The sound of his car tires spitting gravel as he sped away was the punctuation mark, the end of the sentence. I was still standing by the door. My hand was flat against the cool wood, a new habit, as if I could feel the strength of the deadbolt through it. The house was quiet, not the empty, waiting quiet of before. This was different. It was a silence I owned. For a long time, I didn't move. I just listened. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, a sound I hadn't truly heard in years. My own breathing, steady and slow. Each noise was a small anchor, holding me in place, holding me in this new reality. The house was mine. The thought wasn't triumphant. It was simple. A fact, like the floor was solid beneath my feet. My phone lying on the kitchen island began to buzz, a frantic, angry vibration against the granite. It lit up with Peter's name. I watched it. I didn't feel the urge to answer. It was like watching a bug trapped under a glass, an interesting, slightly pathetic spectacle that had nothing to do with me. It buzzed again and again. A string of calls, one after the other, a desperate electronic tantrum. Then the text started. I walked over to the island, my bare feet cold on the tile. I didn't pick up the phone. I just looked at the screen as the notifications flashed across it one by one. Let me in. Laura, this is insane. Open the door. You can't do this. I live here. This is my house. The last one made a small, humorless sound escape my lips. His house. He hadn't seen it that way in years. It was just the place he kept his things, the place he returned to when there was nowhere better to be. I finally picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over his name. I didn't block him, not yet. That felt like a reaction, like fear. I wasn't afraid. I was just done. I silenced the notifications instead. The buzzing stopped. The frantic flashes of light ceased. The silence returned, deeper this time. I slid onto one of the stools at the island. The plates from my New Year's Eve dinner for one were still there. The cold steak, the untouched asparagus. I looked at them, and for the first time, I didn't see my own loneliness. I saw the last meal of a different life, an artifact from another time. Without thinking, I stood up, scraped the food into the trash and placed the plates in the dishwasher. I wiped the counter clean. I threw away the wilted flowers from the centerpiece, erasing the evidence, wiping the slate clean. It was methodical. It was calm. My hands didn't shake. When the kitchen was clean, spotless, I went back to the island and dialed Natalie. She answered on the first ring. "Laura, is everything okay? I saw the locksmith charge go through." Her voice, practical, grounded. It was the sound of the real world. "He's gone," I said. My own voice was thin, but it didn't tremble. "What do you mean, gone? Did he leave? Did he come home?" "Both." I told her everything. The locksmith finishing just in time. Peter's key not working. The confusion on his face, visible even through the reinforced glass of the front door. The disbelief turning to rage, the pounding, the shouting. I told her how I just stood there, on the other side of the door, and felt nothing, just a quiet finality. "My God, Laura," she breathed. "Are you okay? Did he try to break in?" He banged on the door. He yelled. I paused. He sounded like a stranger. And he was. The man I married, the man I thought I knew, wouldn't have done that. Or maybe he would have. Maybe I just never gave him a reason to. I had always opened the door before he even had to knock. "You should have called the police," Natalie said, her voice tight with anger. "For me. It wasn't necessary. He left. He'll be back. It wasn't a question." "I know." We were quiet for a moment. I could hear her moving around, the soft clink of a glass. She was probably pouring a wine she didn't need. "So," she said, her voice shifting. "The crisis manager. The lawyer is booked, 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll come get you at 9:30. Don't drive." "Okay. And your bank account is active. The transfer went through. It's your money, Laura, from your salary." "I know." "Good." She paused again. "What are you going to do now?" It was a simple question, but it was immense. It held the rest of my life in it. "I'm going to go to bed," I said. It was the only answer I had. After we hung up, I couldn't resist. I unlocked my phone and opened Peter's messages. It was an autopsy, a timeline of his unraveling. The angry demands gave way to pleading. "Laura, please, we can talk about this. Don't throw away 15 years. I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I was just having a drink. It meant nothing." Then, the shift, the pivot to blame. It was a move I knew so well, a dance we had done 1,000 times. Only this time I wasn't dancing. I was just watching from the sidelines. "This is because of Marcus, isn't it? What did he say to you?" "I can't believe you'd let him turn you against me. After everything I've done for you, for us." I scrolled past them, my thumb moving mechanically, and then I saw the one that made my blood run cold, the one that confirmed everything. "You don't understand. I had to tell people we were having problems. I was protecting you, protecting our privacy. Sarah was just trying to help me." "Sarah." He said her name. He wrote it down, a name that had been a ghost in my house for months, and here it was, in black and white. Sarah was just trying to help me. Help him do what? Rehearse his new life? Cast me as the unstable wife he was trying so hard to leave? The lie was so vast, so intricate. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a strategy, a campaign. I closed my eyes. The dam I thought had broken on New Year's Eve, that was just a crack. This was the flood, the truth rushing in, washing away all the carefully constructed scenes of our marriage, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the quiet nights I thought were companionable silence. They were all just moments he was wading through, A profound, hollow sadness settled in my chest. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for the marriage. It was for me. For the woman who spent 15 years trying to fix the plumbing in a house that was already scheduled for demolition. The woman who kept setting 2 plates, talking to a blank wall. My phone lit up one more time. It wasn't Peter. It was a text from Marcus. Just checking in. I hope you're okay. That was it. 3 short sentences. No demands, no questions, no accusations, just care. It was so simple, so gentle, it almost felt foreign, a language I hadn't heard in a very long time. I typed back a reply. I am. Thank you. I put the phone down face up on the counter. I walked through the silent house. My house. I went up the stairs, my hand gliding along the banister. In our bedroom, my bedroom, I slid open the closet. His suits hung in a neat row. His shoes were lined up on the rack. His presence was everywhere, a ghost made of fabric and leather. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sorrow. I felt nothing. It was just stuff, things that would soon be gone. I slept in the middle of the bed for the first time in 15 years. I took up all the space, and as I drifted off, I realized the silence wasn't empty at all. It was full. It was full of possibility. It was the sound of a new beginning, my beginning.